Hi, this is Bishop Craig in Northern Michigan, and this is Take One for the week of the 22nd of June. Peace be with you. I learned as a professor that when one student has a question or concern and voices it, it probably means that other students have the same question and concern, so it's best to address it in class. I had a pastor kindly reach out to Pastor Chrissy this week with something that should have come to me, but the pastor kindly reached out to Pastor Chrissy because the pastor was concerned that I have checked out of the office of bishop. So I want to talk about checking out of the office of bishop in the end of June. In a sense, I have. So I've checked out of the office of bishop in that I am not planning for the fall Synod Council meeting. I am not planning for adult theological education. I am not planning for the autumn leadership event. I am not planning for the 2026 Synod Assembly, which is something I'd be starting in about 2 weeks. So yes, on that level, I have checked out. My colleagues and I on the staff have also been pretty strongly encouraged that we should set to work finding our next jobs. And in my experience, you can't really actively seek a new job without emotionally, at some level, checking out of your current job. And you can ask any pastor in the call process. If you start talking to another congregation, you kind of put a little emotional distance between your current congregation. And if you don't get the call, you have to kind of reinvest in your current congregation. I'm thinking of people that seriously considered being our bishop at the Synod Assembly, and they're needing to do that work if they were not called to the office of bishop. So in that level, I guess I have checked out in that I'm spending some time looking for a job, which we can talk about another day. And so, if things were quiet in our synod, absolutely quiet, through August 31st, I would be able to check out. But they've never been absolutely quiet in my 12 years in this office, not for 3 months. And so in the past week, I had significant conversations with 6 rostered ministers and 3 congregational presidents. And I know that Pastor Chrissy had significant conversations with 3 rostered ministers and I believe 1 congregational president. And I believe Pastor Sherston had a significant conversation with a pastor. So now we're talking about 10 pastors last week and 4 congregational presidents or leaders, and that's just the ones that I'm thinking of right now. And we are not checked out of that. So I say this to say to you all, if you have a need that is not like what is going to happen in the fall, if it's something this summer, it's okay to reach out to us. We're still here. I need to say to you, I would never abandon you. I'd never abandon ship. I will keep my post till I stand relieved. So I want you to know that. I really want you to know that. And so there we go. And then I opened the lectionary for this week, and the reading struck me as to be about transitions, people kind of leaving and going. I'm really disappointed because where we jumped into the lectionary for the summer, we're getting the end of Elijah's ministry. So this is Elijah's farewell tour from 1 Kings. Elijah and Elisha are on their way, and they go to Bethel, and they cross the Jordan, and Elijah hits the water with his mantle, and the water, parts, reminding us of the Red Sea and stuff. And on the other side of the Jordan, Elijah turns to Elisha, who refuses to leave him, and says, "What can I do for you?" And it's, "Grant me a double measure of your spirit." And Elijah knows that's not for him to grant, but he says, if you see me taken up, you'll get it. And then the chariot of fire comes and Elijah is taken up. The mantle falls off his shoulders. Elisha understandably grieves, tears his clothes. Elijah goes. Elijah picks up the mantle, puts it on, turnarounds, hits the Jordan, arrives at the Jordan, hits the water parts just like it did for Elijah. And the point is, the work of God continues. Elijah goes, Elisha comes, but God remains consistent. The work of God continues. In the gospel reading, Jesus has set his face toward Jerusalem, and he sends out the advance teams, and they go including to a village of the Samaritans, and they won't receive them because Jesus is going to Jerusalem, which the Samaritans, of course, take as a slight. And God bless the sons of Zebedee. They want to bring down fire upon this village. Retribution. You rejected us, retribution. And Jesus turns and rebukes them. So retribution might be some leader's way, but it is not the way of Jesus. And Jesus goes on, and people, he asks people to follow him, or people offer to follow him, and they all have their reasons. I'm gonna follow you to a place. Let's all go to the future we want. And Jesus is like, foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests. I've got nowhere to lay my head. Oh, and I'm going to the cross. I'll follow you, but please let me go bury the dead. And, leave the dead to bury their own dead, Jesus says. And, that sounds cruel, but I think it was Pastor Reed Shore, who once said to the people of Rhodes when he was pastor, we need to either attend to the people in the graveyard or we need to attend to the people in the community. We're trying to preserve what the people in the graveyard want. Leave the dead to bury their own dead. But the verse that jumped out at me, because it came into my mind a few weeks ago, is no one who puts their hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the reign of God. So there again, in times of transition, we need to look ahead and we need to move forward. You don't look back. Then in the Galatians reading, Paul asserts, for freedom Christ has set us free. And the whole reading is about spelling out what that freedom in Christ is. And wow, I would encourage you to read it, to read the appointed gospel reading for June 29th. If you don't feel like listening or writing to a sermon, read that one slowly for the sermon about 3 or 4 times and let it sink in. The bottom line is we are to stand firm against those that oppose God, if you will, and we are not to use our freedom for self-interests, but we are to become slaves to one another in love. Yeah, read that reading and let it sink in. I read it about 4 times, and just let it penetrate my being. So I've always found the lectionary amazing as to how relevant it is to what's going on in my life and in the life of the church and in the life of the world. And for me, these readings speak of transition, and maybe they'll speak to transition, whatever transition you are in your congregation or in your life, or as we watch the world. So I am Bishop Craig, and this is Take One, on duty for 70 more days, and glad to be here. The peace of Christ be with you always. Take care.